everyone, and welcome to Elder Law Today. I'm the producer of the show, Robert Allen, and I'd like to introduce the host of Elder Law Today, Yael Hauptman.
Robert, thanks very much, and welcome everybody to show number 14. Last month, we talked about a married couple scenario where Dad has just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, very early diagnosis. Now we're going to talk about what happens if it's now 3, 4, 5 years later. Dad is now in advanced stages. The family hasn't done the planning that we talked about in show number 13, and they get together, and now long-term care, nursing home care is now looking like it's an inevitability, and none of the planning has been done. What are the options? Mom now is seeing that she's going to have to be spending down their hard-earned assets, and she's concerned there's not going to be a lot left for her, and she's correct. Without any sort of planning, she's probably going to be left, Robert, with about $100,000, a little more than that. Plus, let's say they own a house, so she'll be able to keep the house, but she'll also probably lose her husband's income. So now she's going to have not a lot in assets to generate that income from, and she's going to probably lose, depending on what level of income she already has. She may lose a significant chunk of that. So, Robert, why don't we jump right in here?
Okay,
and
let's see what the solutions are.
Yep, I'm going to go through a number of scenarios, and again, timing is a real key here. Okay, so let's talk about first. Dad's scenario is Dad's not yet in a nursing home. Okay, and the way Medicaid, and really we're talking about Medicaid here. At some point after they spend down assets, Dad's going to qualify for Medicaid. That's really the scenario here, and the question is, what level of assets is that going to be? Mm-hmm. What's that magic number? And that's going to be a function of a calculation. The Medicaid folks total up the combined assets of the married couple. Doesn't matter who owns what. Divide it in half, and the healthy spouse, mom in our scenario, is going to get to keep about $105,000. Mm-hmm. Okay, the number fluctuates based on inflation. Okay, but it's going to be about $105,000. And so, what can we do to increase that number? Mm-hmm. All right. And by the way, the house is an exempt asset, so it doesn't count towards that number. And that $105,000 is a maximum number. So it's one half, but only up to that number. So if mom and dad have $300,000, she doesn't get to keep $150,000. She only gets to keep $105,000.
Right.
So first strategy here is, if dad is not yet in the nursing home, and let's say mom and dad have $150,000, so mom would get to keep $75,000. What we can do is to increase that number by having mom and dad take a home equity on their home. And if they do that and they take out cash before dad goes into the nursing home, and let's say they take out enough money to bring their assets up to $210,000.
Okay.
All right. The snapshot of the value of their assets is taken as of the first day of the first month of what's called continuous institutionalization. So if dad goes into the nursing home, or if he goes into the hospital and from there goes into the nursing home, it's the first day of the first month that he went into the hospital or the nursing home, whichever scenario applies. That's when they take the value of their assets from which we have to spend down. So if we add to their assets another, $150 plus $60,000, or $210,000, mom now gets to keep one half, $105,000, as opposed to half of $150,000. We then repay the home equity.
Right.
Okay, so now they're down back to $150,000. They have to spend another $45,000, which typically would go, a lot of it would go to the nursing home.
Right.
But mom gets to keep, in other words, 105 of 150, not 75.
Right.
Okay, so that's a quick strategy there. But again, timing is key.
Right.
What else can be done? Sometimes we see scenarios where mom and dad had sold their home, and I had this call recently where they sold their home and they put their money into annuities. They locked it up. Dad is needing long-term care. He needs nursing home care, and now they have $300,000 in annuities. Mom's going to have to spend it down to 105. One of the things that very quickly can be done is buy a house. Okay? And if mom buys a house, whatever the value, she can take 100, 200, the whole 300, put it into a house. Dad will immediately qualify for Medicaid. Now, I have to tell you, these are very general scenarios, and there are a lot more specifics to it, but I'm giving folks out there, the ideas, and these are absolutely strategies that can work, but obviously it means, moving, it means, selling, buying, selling, what have you. But there absolutely can save hundreds of thousands of dollars that mom will need to live on.
Right.
Couple of other scenarios here. Pay off a car loan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, pay off a leased vehicle. Buy a new car. A car is an exempt asset. Okay, so if you're driving around with a 1995 car, okay, mom's driving around, buy a new car. You're going to have to spend the money down rather than pay it all to the nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
Spend it on something that that mom needs, rather than waiting till after Medicaid is received, and now mom has to pay for that out of her half. You're paying for it out of dad's half.
What are some other assets like a car that you can have that they can't touch?
That they can't touch. A car. The big ones are a car, a house. You can put away money into a irrevocable burial, and that's something that is that ought to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Again, out of dad's money, and really mom ought to be doing it as well, because it's out of the spend down portion. But those are generally going to be the biggies. Sometimes improving the house. You own a house.
Improvement. Uh-huh.
There's work that needs to be done in a house. Maybe a new furnace, a new heater, maybe an extension, in the house, sometimes is doable. Or sometimes putting on a new roof. Whatever needs to be done, number one, you're taking a countable asset and putting it into a non-countable asset. You're increasing the value of the house.
Right.
After dad goes on Medicaid, mom can then perhaps turn around and sell the house. She doesn't need it. It's too big. And she gets to keep all that money for her own use. Okay? So it's all about stretching out the money and trying to protect as much for mom. Let me talk about a reverse mortgage, okay, very quickly, because a lot of folks, I'm seeing scenarios where the assets are all gone and the only thing that's left is a house, and the families now, with the credit crunch that's going on, they can't get a mortgage. A reverse mortgage is a way to go, and sometimes it's the only game in town. Right. Because you don't need to show income to qualify. That's exactly the point of the reverse mortgage.
Right.
And sometimes that can free up money to get folks into, parents into a nursing home and tapping into the equity in the home until you can sell the house. Right. Those are, Robert, a couple of, a number of options. There are absolutely, I want to tell folks out there that if they haven't done the planning early and it is now late in the game, it is still possible to take some steps that can save folks a lot of money. I'm not going to tell you that, it's going to be as good a situation as if you'd done the early planning, but still, you're much better off. I still get calls from people who say, boy, I wish I had called you. I spent, $100, $200, $400, $600,000 towards nursing home care, and I just didn't think to call you.
Yeah, and it's too late. So you've been forewarned, all of all of the listeners. If anyone has any questions or comments for Yale, he'd love to hear from you. The email address is feedback@elderlawtodaypodcast.com. That's feedback@elderlawtodaypodcast.com. And if you're listening to this on a CD, make sure that you visit our website, which is elderlawtodaypodcast.com, for all of the great content that exists as a podcast. So you can subscribe right there and get all of the great content that gets released on Elder Law Today.
Thanks, Robert. And that wraps up show number 14.